All right, this is the B Block Podcast. I am your host, Brandon Scott. Appreciate you for being here, whether that's on the YouTube or in the audio platforms. If you're on the audio platforms, of course, you can find us on YouTube at the B Block Podcast and vice versa. I wanted to talk today about the start of the Rocket season. We had Media Day earlier in the week. We've had glimpses of the early days of Rockets training camp. And this is the time to really start getting excited, especially with the Astros not playing October baseball for the first time in nearly a decade. And that happening right as the Rockets are probably they're as exciting as they've been in at least 7 years. And I would argue as exciting as they've been in most of our lifetimes, save for the actual championship seasons. And now we got the significant part about this, of course, is because the Rockets didn't do any kind of like introductory press conferences with Kevin Durant. This is actually our first look at Kevin Durant as a Rocket. The Media Day stuff that y'all saw earlier in the week, of course, some of the exclusive interviews that he did with Space City Home Network. Of course, he's been on some podcasts, and a lot of the players have obviously been available at some of these training camp practices already. And so we're starting to finally get a feel for what the Rockets are going to look like. And all of this also on the heels of learning that Fred VanVleet is not going to be available to them this year because of a torn ACL. And how does the team actually adjust and address this huge hole in their lineup, this issue that I don't think that we should overlook, but also probably keep it in its proper context. And I'll talk about that in just a moment. But the big thing with Kevin Durant, I thought it was a couple of things. It was one, him kind of confirming, I think we all knew this, but to hear him say it out loud that he does plan on signing an extension. Of course, the team is not going to talk about that type of stuff. When they had asked Rafael Stone about it earlier in Media Day, he, as you would expect an executive to do, or a personnel guy to do, is to not talk about contracts and that sort of thing. But Kevin Durant did say that he plans to sign an extension. That gives you a pretty good sense for him being all in. And you wouldn't think that he would okay a trade or engineer a trade somewhere where he didn't want to sign an extension. So we already knew this stuff. But to hear him say it out loud was worthwhile having on the record. So we had that. And then, of course, him talking about the Rockets championship ingredients. Like, do the Rockets have the ingredients, for lack of a better term, to not only compete for a championship, but to also win one? Kevin Durant being a particular expert on it, having won a couple of championships of his own and played on a lot of contending teams. And so he did talk about that. And so I'm curious to know from the audience, and y'all just kind of hit me up in the chats. Of course, we're on YouTube. If you're on the audio only, you should probably find us on YouTube, where you can participate in the comment section and all that kind of stuff. But Kevin Durant laid out the Rockets championship ingredients. And I think a lot of people are really still trying to parse this out. Like, does Kevin Durant alone, subbing Jalen Green for Kevin Durant and making that kind of a central theme to what you do, is that good enough to take the Rockets from a 2 seed that nobody really thought could contend for a championship, and sure enough lost in the first round to an experienced team? Is that enough to take them from that? Is Kevin Durant enough to take them from that to an actual championship contender? I have said for a long time that I thought it was. But this is what Kevin Durant said when my colleague at the Houston Chronicle, Danielle Lerner, actually asked him about whether he thought that the Rockets had the championship formula. And he said the formula, first of all, he says he doesn't really talk about championships with the teams that he's on. He really just kind of like tries to focus on the work. But he says that the formula, I felt the last few years in the league, is to have size, is to have guys that can penetrate, guys that can create extra possessions for you, guys that can switch and guard multiple positions, length, athleticism, discipline, effort every single night from a scheme perspective. That and camaraderie, continuity, all of that stuff matters. And he goes on to say that he feels like they've got bits and pieces of that, and it's all about kind of gelling it together and putting in the work and seeing how it all works out at the end. So I thought he did a pretty good job laying that out in terms of the attributes of this team and the reason why they do have the championship ingredients. I mean, like you put Kevin Durant on a team that already was a 2 seed, and you mix that together, logically that tells you that you've got championship ingredients. But he kind of spells it out for you there in terms of what they have: guys that can guard multiple positions. You're talking about Amin Thompson, Tari Eason, Jabari Smith, Kevin Durant himself, right? And then Dorian Finney-Smith, whenever he gets healthy, will be another person that falls along those lines. And so they've got that. They got guys that can create multiple shots for them. Of course, Alperen Sengun falls along that line, or falls along those lines of somebody that you can give the ball to, create extra possessions for you, penetrate, pretty much do whatever he wants with the basketball. So so yeah, and then the length, of course, Jabari Smith Jr., Tari Eason, Amin Thompson, Kevin Durant himself, like they're gonna be, and I've talked about this just when Kevin Durant was a possibility. Like, think of how big the Rockets lineups can actually be just by having Kevin Durant in there with what they already had, you know. So like they got the potential to when Fred VanVleet was healthy, where Fred VanVleet would be their only sub 6'6" guy out there in any given lineup. And now that guy is more than likely going to be Reed Sheppard, who we'll talk about I'm sure in a little bit. But yeah, I think this was real cool to see. It's especially cool watching like Kevin Durant in the Rockets gear practicing at that new facility that they got out there off I-10, and just like all of this coming together, seeming to come together at the right time or at a perfect time when you've got Amin Thompson ascending into a real star in this league. Alperen Sengun, I feel like having established himself as a star in this league, and then of course it's an interesting season for guys like Jabari Smith Jr., who just got paid, who everybody thinks is good, but almost everybody thinks can be a whole hell of a lot better than he's been. And Reed Sheppard, who we still don't know, like a lottery pick who barely played, but at times had glimpses of basically showing you the reason why he might be a number 3 overall pick. Because I know that was a question, like, man, is this just a weak draft for this dude to be getting picked number 3 overall? It can't be that good of a draft if this is the guy that they picking. And then you go out there and see him, or you see him go out there and have a game like he did in Oklahoma City. I think it was in March, whenever it was, when a bunch of guys were hurt, and him and Cam Whitmore just set the actual Oklahoma City Thunder, who won the championship, kind of just like set them on fire for a night. What does he do in an increased role? Which leads me to the next thing that I want to talk about, which is what I feel like the Rockets offense should look like. I'm going to dumb it down and make it really simple because there's no need to get in the weeds here on this podcast. But I think there are two things, and some of this was talked about, but this is just my view on it. I feel like there are two things that the Rockets now can rely on and hang their hats on as a team when it comes to an offensive identity. One of them is something that they already had, and that's giving the ball to Alperen Sengun, whether that's in the post, whether that's at the elbow, high post, like wherever Alperen Sengun feels comfortable and wants the basketball, get them the basketball right there and let them operate, let them work. That's a part of their offense, a part of their offensive identity. Now they have Kevin Durant. A big part of their offensive identity can also now be give the ball to Kevin Durant, space the floor, allow him to operate, allow him to work, see what kind of attention that he draws, see what he's able to do, and be ready for the ball if it comes to you. Also, perhaps some Kevin Durant, Alperen Sengun, two-man game. And this is what I want to see. In addition to what we already know, like I think the Alperen Sengun point and the Kevin Durant point are the most obvious pieces to what you can expect to see from the Rockets offensively. But what I want to see more of, now that you have Kevin Durant who can space the floor, now that, of course, with Jalen Green gone, I think you are in some ways also doubling down or doubling down on Amin Thompson and Alperen Sengun as sort of your cornerstone pieces along with Kevin Durant, right? You saw a lot of that of the new established big three of those three, right? So what I want to see a lot more, and what I feel like the Rockets offense should look like, is Amin Thompson and Alperen Sengun pick and rolls. It's Reed Sheppard, Alperen Sengun pick and rolls. It is Kevin Durant, Alperen Sengun pick and rolls. And when they also decide to do those other things that I talked about, give Alperen Sengun the ball, give Kevin Durant the ball. The rest of us got to be okay with that as a part of this larger thing that they're doing, as long as these other elements are true, actual, consistent parts of the Rockets offense. Alperen Sengun and Amin Thompson pick and roll, Reed Sheppard and Alperen Sengun pick and roll, telling guys like Jabari Smith Jr. and Kevin Durant to be ready to space the floor. In the case where when Amin Thompson is not in the pick and roll, be ready to operate along the baseline and just affect the play, which we know he's prone to do. This is what I want to see from the Rockets offense. And I think, to me, that is, in a nutshell, how you replace Fred VanVleet. Like, there is a, I think, healthy concern about Fred VanVleet and not actually having a player exactly like him in terms of a point guard who can help you get into your offense, help you get into your sets, and I would say even more importantly, like defensively, help you get matched up and kind of understand what your defensive assignments are and what you're doing. They don't necessarily have a player to replace that per se, and I doubt that they're going to be able to acquire one. I know that's a really fun thing for people to talk about. Who can the Rockets go get? I've seen them linked to Anthony Simons, and I know earlier you had guys talking about like going to get Peyton Pritchard or TJ McConnell, and all of these. I don't like. I honestly don't see them doing any of that. But what I do think is important is that with Kevin Durant now, and with this doubling down on Amin Thompson and Alperen Sengun, you now have a clearer and more stated identity as a team, and this is how you will replace Fred VanVleet. Because look, uh, in terms of shooting, they've added shooting with Kevin Durant, with whenever Dorian Finney-Smith gets healthy again, with him, right? With Jabari Smith Jr.'s hoped improvement and increased role. I'll talk about that in a second. But like they've got Reed Sheppard is the same thing. They've got guys that can shoot the ball and enough guys that can just bring the ball up in the half court to where eventually you just get the ball to Amin Thompson if he's not already bringing the ball up to begin with. You get the ball to Kevin Durant if he's not already bringing the ball up to begin with. You get the ball to Alperen Sengun if he's not already bringing the ball up to begin with. And what I'm saying here is they've got three guys now that the offense is going to run through. And all of these guys can bring the ball up the court if need be, any of the three of them. And the fifth guy, we don't even have to talk about Jabari Smith and the ball handling part. Like, I'm not even trying to, like he's got his own role. But like any other guy that they put out there, if it's Reed Sheppard or Aaron Holiday, or when Dorian Finney-Smith gets healthy, like they got guys that can like just bring the ball up in the half court. What I want to see from them is staying true to, that like elite defensive team that's not getting the ball out the net, but it's picking it up off the rim, off the back of the rim, off the front of the rim, and you're getting up and going. Right? Like the like a fast break offense first and foremost, because your defense is such a problem. But in the half court setting, the goal is to get the ball into either Amen Thompson or Kevin Durant's hands and then operating from there. Whether it's that Amen Thompson, Alperen Sengun pick and roll that I talked about, whether it's that, you know, maybe even it's a Reed Sheppard, Alperen Sengun pick and roll like I talked about, or if it's just simply getting the ball to Kevin Durant, simply getting the ball to Alperen Sengun. All of that to me is fine. So I think the bigger question is going to be, how do they replace him defensively? I'm curious to see that. I'm not sure exactly what that's going to look like, but I do think that the committee approach that uh, that Ime Udoka talked about, like, I do think the committee approach to replacing Fred VanVleet is not just lip service from Ime Udoka. I think it is going to be a lot of how I just described it. Like Fred VanVleet was probably, I would say he was indispensable before the Rockets acquired Kevin Durant, because at that point he was their most experienced, their most accomplished, and their most intelligent player on the team, basketball intelligent player on the team. Now that's Kevin Durant. So I think that what you'll require is for Kevin Durant to provide some of that leadership, some of that experience, some of that basketball intelligence. And I would say that no one on this team has more of that than KD does. I think you'll require more of Sengun and of Amen Thompson to step up as, like, for them to step up as like actual veterans on the team now, because, like, while they're still young players, they are veterans on the team. They're veterans on the team now, and guys who the Rockets are clearly building around. Reed Sheppard will play a role in all of this as well. Now, I think it's important not to compare, not to do too much comparing of Reed Sheppard to Fred VanVleet, as tempting as it might be. It's real easy to do because they're players of similar size and technically play the same position. But, like, until proven otherwise, I feel like this is still a boy to man comparison right now. So I wouldn't do that. But I did like how Udoka talked about Reed Sheppard already getting an increased role before this Fred VanVleet thing happened. So logically, that tells you that that imagined role that Reed Sheppard was going to get increases even more with Fred out. It's time for him to step up. You know, I don't think, and when I say step up, I'm not saying, hey, go lead the team to a championship or nothing like that. I'm talking about, if he is your, I don't think it's too much to ask of Reed Sheppard, especially with Kevin Durant, Amen Thompson, and Alperen Sengun leading the way. I don't think it is. I don't think it should be too much to ask of Reed Sheppard to be your sixth or seventh best player. I don't think that should be too much to ask at all. So yeah, he's gonna have to step up. I don't think it's gonna be all on him, that he's just a simple plug and play. This is the guy that's replacing Fred VanVleet, but he is gonna have to step up. And honestly, I'll say this too. I would actually start Reed Sheppard and see how it goes. Like, I would start the season with Reed Sheppard in the starting lineup, not pretending like he's gonna be Fred VanVleet and be the floor general and all of that. Like, he's gonna have a reasonable role as the point guard, but, like, everybody's gonna be a part of, like, him, Amen Thompson, Kevin Durant, as Udoka described it, like a committee approach to that position. And to me, if it doesn't work out, the worst case scenario is you end up going to Aaron Holiday, who's probably more talented than people want to give him credit for, because he's not Drew Holiday, but is a, like, a fine basketball player, perfectly fit for uh, most roles that they'd reasonably ask of him, or if it's Tari Eason while you wait on DFS to get healthy. Uh, and that's if the Reed Sheppard thing doesn't work out. But I just told you what I want the offense to look like. I want to see a Min Thompson and Alperen Sengun pick and rolls. I want to see Reed Sheppard and Alperen Sengun pick and rolls. I want to see Kevin Durant with the ball and a Min Thompson roaming the baseline, and everybody else, Reed Sheppard, Jabari Smith included, ready to shoot the ball. And Alperen Sengun and the Min Thompson ready to offensive rebound. That's what I'm actually looking forward to. So yeah, the thing that I'm worried about with Sheppard, of course, is that I'm much more worried about than I would say what he would how he would fit offensively is he actually stronger? Like much more worried about Sheppard defensively, and is he strong enough and better equipped to defend at the NBA level on a consistent basis? That's what the question is. And they all talk a good game. You can learn enough from if you follow the Texans, you can learn enough from not buying too much of what you hear in training camp, like taking it at face value. But when you hear people talk at media days and training camp, man, look, the rubber got to meet the road. They got to get out there and play. Don't buy too much into that. But this is what you're looking out for. If Reed Sheppard can be a respectable, viable defensive player, then his offensive profile is good enough for him to play off of Kevin Durant and Amin Thompson and Alperen Sengun. At least I think so. Now, even with that said, I still think that Jabari Smith Jr. has the most potential for a leap out of all of the young players that are not Amin Thompson and Alperen Sengun, right? Like the guys outside of that established big three that we talked about. Jabari Smith Jr.'s potential leap, and I just talked about not buying too much into what you see and hear at media days and early days of training camp, but he looks like, and to be clear, I didn't get to attend media day or these practices, but of course I know all of the people that are there. And so from what I can tell, and of course I'm following it pretty damn closely. From what I can tell, man, he looks like a bigger, stronger version of himself. We'll see if that actually plays out on the court. But he does appear to be like more physically developed. I think I was telling somebody the other day, man, it you can see the boy to man transition that he's made from when he got here a few years ago and still kind of had that skinny boy body to now really looking like an NBA player, like an actual, not just being tall, but having an actual NBA body. It appears that he has one of those now. What's that mean? Like, what's that gonna do for him? And like his like he's already decent at defending bigs, but like does that make him feel like that's gonna make him a better defensive player, make him an even better rebounder? And the Kevin Durant piece, I think, is what's gonna give him the most opportunity to showcase what we already believe he can do and what we've seen him do at times in his career already, right? Like, just think about the attention that Kevin Durant and Alperen Sengun are going to get. We know that those guys are going to get attention. We've watched it already with Kevin Durant for almost 20 years. And Alperen Sengun, just look no further than last year in his All-Star season, where I think off the strength of the season that he had before, which he would tell you was a better season than his All-Star season, like, so the year he didn't make the All-Star team, but what he did was establish himself as a guy that opposing teams had to account for, plan for, and in a lot of cases, send double teams. So, and that's been the case. Of course, they've been playing together for a while, but you add Kevin Durant to that mix, already got Alperen Sengun in that mix. I talked about wanting to see more of an emphasis of Amen Thompson having the ball in his hands as some pick and roll for Amen Thompson and creating opportunities for guys like Jabari Smith Jr. and Kevin Durant and Reed Sheppard and Dorian Finney-Smith and whoever the hell else is out on the wing or in the corner. And Jabari specifically, let's run some plays that set him up for that corner three. There should be a heavy dose of Jabari Smith Jr. corner three plays in their arsenal now. Now that they know more what they are and what they look like. They're not waiting on a player to figure out what he is, right? They're not waiting to figure out how much they can rely on that guy. They got Kevin Durant. They got Alperen Sengun. They got faith, not just curiosity, but faith in Amen Thompson. So let that boy do his thing. And all of that should create opportunities for Jabari Smith Jr. I think his potential for growth and his potential leap is the greatest and the most interesting of all the guys that are not in that big three. Now, before I go, I do want to get back to Amen Thompson, since I mentioned him earlier as a part of what I want this Rockets offense to look like. And I just got done talking about Jabari Smith Jr. Y'all see what bro said about Amen Thompson and the mid-range shot? Again, look, I said this earlier, and I want to preface this again before I gush all over this quote, that you can't read too much into what you hear and see at media day and training camp, even if it excites you, even if it concerns you. You got to take it at face value. I'm not saying it's meaningless. I'm saying don't read too much into it. All right. Having said that, what Jabari Smith is saying about Amen Thompson's jump shot, to me, whether you believe in it or not, and it doesn't really matter if you believe in it because we're going to actually get to see it once they start playing basketball again. But I do think that this is so key to everything that we talked about and everything that we're like thinking about with the Rockets. And that's on this mid-range shot. When does Amen Thompson get that mid-range shot that he's confident in and that he's knocking down consistently? Because this is what Jabari Smith said. And I think this was at a practice, if I'm not mistaken, but maybe it was media day. But either way, earlier this week, Jabari Smith Jr. on Amen Thompson's jump shot. He has a lot more confidence in it, especially with his mid-range coming off of pick and rolls. It looks a lot better, a lot more fluid. If he's making shots, it makes us a totally different team and him a totally different player. Yeah, and I do believe that was at a practice from what I'm seeing. So, like, I mean, point made right there about Jabari Smith Jr. Like, I could not say that any better myself. Like, this is him giving you his own insight on it from being his teammate and watching him. He says he has a lot more confidence in it, especially his mid-range coming off of pick and rolls. It looks a lot better, a lot more fluid. Great to hear. We'll see. But this point is the one I can't say any better, and I want to reiterate and co-sign from Jabari Smith Jr. If he's making shots and he being Amen Thompson, if Amen Thompson is making shots, it makes us a totally different team and him a totally different player. Amen Thompson middies off of the pick and roll. Look, that's what I feel like this offense should look like if he is truly developing into that type of player. I could not agree more with that point. And maybe to some it seems obvious, but this is what we're looking out for. You know what you got. You got Kevin Durant. as a safety valve. You've got Alperen Sengun as a reasonable hub for an offense. Do you have what Jabari Smith Jr. is talking about here? Do you have the Amen Thompson mid-range jump shot? The Amen Thompson mid-range jump shot off the pick and roll. You talk about Reed Sheppard and replacing talk about Reed Sheppard replacing Fred VanVleet. You know, you can go there. You can go with that. Talk about Kevin Durant being added. And I've the season for the Rockets. Talking about his first All-Star campaign. But if I be damned if we start talking about Amen Thompson mid-range jump shots. Oh boy. I said this by far for me the most exciting young player to watch in the city right now. So I'm looking forward to that, man. Look, I appreciate y'all for being here, whether it's the YouTube or the audio only platforms. We're gonna do another one of these ahead of the Texans going out to Baltimore to face a depleted Ravens team. I want to look at that matchup. I actually need to get out of here now to go check out the coordinators and see what they're saying ahead of this matchup. So we're going to talk here on the podcast again about that game and some other Texans related things. Hope that y'all join me. Make sure that you comment, subscribe, rate, review, tell a friend, all that good stuff. Until next time, y'all be good.